Is there a FNAF fan game that you once played or heard about that not a lot of people seem to remember? Maybe this fan game was loved back in the day, but now people seem to have forgotten about it completely, at least nowadays. There's a certain duology of games that exist, both developed by Nikson, known as the creator of the Joy of Creation series, a series that is not forgotten and is nearly praised almost everywhere you look on the internet. But this duology was the developer's claim to fame before TJOC, and I personally think it should be brought into the spotlight for just a bit, those games being the Those Nights at Rachel's duology. Those Nights at Rachel's 1, releasing on February 5th, 2016, centers around a newly hired night guard working at Doug and Rachel's, a rival establishment to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This restaurant has a total of 6 animatronics. There's Doug the dog and Rachel the rabbit themselves, Pete the pig, Bane the bull, Ray the raccoon, and The Thing, which is this game's version of the puppet. Now, this game upon initial release was brought with immediate praise for its 3D atmosphere and semi-free-roam gameplay, which at the time was unheard of for FNAF, especially fan games. It all felt realistic, and this gameplay was enough to put players on their seats. A lot of content creators at the time played this game, ranging from Dawko to MatPat to even Markiplier. However, unfortunately, this game seems to have been swept under the radar in the last couple of years, besides a few bits of attention here and there, whether that be video essays or streams. And I'm just gonna be straight up honest, since this is a review after all. To me, the reason this game ultimately is not as remembered as, let's say, The Joy of Creation is because, well, this game is honestly poorly aged. Now look, I'll go for the positives real quick before I get with the negatives of this game. For starters, most of the visuals are still fantastic. I love the whole environment and atmosphere that we're playing in. It feels semi-dim, and the darkness that surrounds the office makes it better. I also love how the cameras are all a night vision-esque green. It gives the camera more flavor or uniqueness when it comes to cameras in FNAF games. Doug and Rachel's itself looks like a fully realized location with a lot to make it look like an actual animatronic entertainment restaurant. There's more to go along with the visuals. Most of the character models in this game are really good. The main cast can all look eerie in some of their camera poses and can even look terrifying. Their jump scare animations are also fantastic. I do have some minor criticisms with the visuals. One is that I'm not a huge fan on the Thing's model. He looks semi-bland and lacks any proper textures that are effective in any way to convey something either appealing or creepy. Also, I'm sorry, but both Doug and Rachel when they're at the door look like they don't fit in and look unnatural, and not in the creepy way, in the way that they just felt like they were just pasted in. But otherwise, the visuals and character models for the most part are one of this game's highlights and is by far the part about the game that has aged the best. By far though, my favorite part about this game is the phone guy. He has such a sarcastic, asshole-ish, don't give a fuck attitude with both his voice and his overall character that I can't help but find some of his lines amusing.
The company thinks that putting up security cameras in practically any corner is going to help, and honestly, I don't think it will, with what you're gonna have to deal with.
He starts to get pissed about the place as each night passes, and you can tell in his voice, and that's all thanks to a fantastic voice work. Along with that, he provides most of the game's lore, which, in regards to the lore, it's alright. It's not the most engaging thing in the world, it's honestly pretty surface level, but that's the least of this game's problems. Now, by far, this game's biggest problem is the gameplay. Gameplay, in my opinion, is the most important part of almost any game, and this game is no exception. It's the selling point of the product. If the gameplay isn't good, then the game is knocked down severely, and while not terrible, this game's gameplay has a lot to be desired. You get into a gameplay rhythm and loop that honestly after a while gets tedious. Really tedious. The navigation from going one of the places of the office to the next can be annoying, and it brings the gameplay down for me. By far though, the biggest problem with the gameplay is without a doubt the resource management. It's awful in this game. Door power exists in this game, but it's way too forgiving for it to be too much of an issue. Worrying about the power in this game is never a feeling the player has while playing the game, because only occasionally it can actually serve as an issue, but the resource management is like the least of your problems if you understand the game's base mechanics in regards to how to deal with the animatronics. On top of that, with the fact that the nights in this game being shorter than the usual FNAF nights, starting at 1 AM and not 12, making it much faster and easier to complete the nights. This game honestly gets pretty boring because of all of its gameplay flaws. It's unfortunate because this game was special back in the day and it has a lot going for it, at least visually, but when it comes to a good FNAF fan game, I can't call it that. This game does have a hard mode that I think is semi-superior to the base game, but it's got an annoying gameplay loop through and through yet again. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's a shame that this game has been semi-forgotten, but at the same time, I can kind of see why. Those Nights at Rachel's 2 Reloaded, releasing as an initial joke game for April Fool's 2018, centers around an unnamed protagonist at presumably Doug and Rachel's, where you're equipped with a gun and you must shoot T-posing animatronics comprised of the whole first game cast except for Pete the Pig for some reason. And the worst part is, I unironically love this game. For what is basically a joke game, it's surprisingly a really solid game. I don't know, but this game is just simply more fun and engaging. And also, this isn't like a short joke game that lasts only a minute. No, this game actually has an ending, and a completion run lasts around 10 minutes. Still not as long as the first game, but regardless, this game stands out as being more enjoyable to me. There's obviously the novelty of shooting T-posing animatronics, which is stupidly funny, but beyond that, you actually get invested in the game's gameplay. One thing to note is that there's actually better resource management in this game with the ammo box and how it can run out, so you have to actually save your bullets. That's good. Also, the game indeed gets harder as it goes on, and it's actually a challenge. It also changes up on you, so it's not a tedious loop the whole game. There's also a whole boss fight in this game, which is the thing. It's a stupidly enjoyable boss fight. There's a good video on YouTube by that Cyber channel that talks about how the gameplay of this game somehow is in line with the original gameplay mechanics that the original FNAF games were popular for, like the defenseless situation and the limited resources, plus its management. That adds a whole layer of cleverness to this whole April Fool's game. Also, the credits in this game confirm this is the canon sequel to the first game, which is just hilarious. Part of me feels like this is a jab about how, fun fact, there was originally going to be an actual sequel to Those Nights at Rachel's, but it got cancelled. Only a few teasers remain. That's a shame, but I'm still glad we got this game. Also, the animatronics' new names displayed in the credits are just so fucking golden. And one final thing I have to say about this game. The music slaps. The in-game music is an addictive earworm, and the fact it speeds up as the game progresses somehow makes it better, and the credits music is just stupidly funny yet again. Those Nights at Rachel's 2 Reloaded is just simply fun. It somehow beats the first game when it comes to actually being an enjoyable and engaging game, and it stands out to me as one of, if not, the best April Fool's jokes or joke media in general to come from the FNAF community. Pure brilliance. The Those Nights at Rachel's duology is an interesting pair of FNAF Fangames for sure. Going back and reviewing these games, I can see why this duology was mostly forgotten. It's sad, but it's not hard to see why that a series consisting of a first game with poorly aged gameplay and a second game that is better than the first game, but is ultimately an April Fool's shitpost didn't go far in recognition. I think it's understandable why Nikson's other series, The Joy of Creation, went far because of how much the series was praised for what it brought to the table, with way more free roam and also, to be honest, more memorable characters. But hey, it was still nice going back to Nikson's history somewhat before The Joy of Creation. Maybe someday the Fazbear Fanverse initiative can do Rachel's some justice if Nikson's up for it, but who knows. Those Nights at Rachel's, despite its low memorability and my opinions on the games themselves, I think they should still be considered classic FNAF Fangames that people did play and enjoy at one point and should be given more spotlight.